We are over halfway through the year, and you've been putting off your goals so much so that you have not accomplished one. And that's okay. A lot of us are finding ourselves here. But we're going to put an end to it today because we're going to find out what we can do to pay off some debt. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Handy Dandy Living. And if you're new, welcome. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to pay off credit card debt fast on a low income. If you're interested, stay tuned. So you may be wondering, why this video? Well, I enjoy nice things and experiences, but at a reasonable price. Which is why I have always loved and learned attempting new things and trying to do things myself so that I could cut the cost. Hence, this video of me learning how to make a festive cake. So, just to give you a little bit about me, and just so you know, all that I share is to help paint the picture, not to boast. I was blessed to be able to graduate from undergrad or uni, whichever you call it, with no student loan debt. I was 20 years old, going on to 21. At 21, the same year that I graduated college, I received my first big girl job as a teacher. I lived with my parents until I was 23 years old. I was very grateful for this because I understand that's not the case or an option for everyone. So I was very grateful and still am very grateful that I had that opportunity. So they didn't require me to pay anything, no rent or anything. I just paid for personal things and I gave when I did because I wanted to. So because of this setup, I made multiple payments a month on my car. At the time, that was like the only bill or amount of debt that I had, a car, that's it. And I still had no credit card debt at the time. Although I was making a low income, it was in abundance at the time because I had no children. I wasn't married and I didn't have a bunch of bills. So most people say that teachers are underpaid, and we are. But not only are teachers underpaid, teachers are paid one of the lowest salaries for all of the work that they do. That's just my opinion. I know that's a whole topic on its own. But just so you know, low income teacher working in one of the lowest paying states in education. Okay. At 23, I got married and I moved into an apartment with my husband the day after we returned from our wedding. So it was very fast, boom, boom, boom. And that's how I wanted it to be, both of us. So I had a decent amount of savings, and together, along with gifts, we were able to pay for our wedding in cash. If you want more details on our cruise wedding and how we paid for it in cash, let me know in the comment section. Returning from the wedding is when reality set in. And honestly, I went into a slight panic. So at this time, my husband had to pay his old apartment rent before he could be released from that contract, just to give you an idea of what was going on with money on both ends. So all of my savings went to the wedding, the honeymoon, rent deposit, first month's rent, and bills. So I had thousands saved up. But those thousands quickly went away, and I was down to like maybe my last couple thousand. When I say couple, I mean couple as in like 2 or 3, and that was supposed to take me through the summer. Okay, so all I had left was enough for basic needs during the summer before being paid again at the end of August, which was as a teacher, if you don't know, teachers are on a 10-month salary, which means for most teachers, you get paid at the end of May and you don't see another paycheck until the end of August. So a lot of people think that teachers have a summer vacation, they're just out on break, having this great time, living their life, and they get 2 months off from work. Well, actually, the way it really is that teachers are employed for 10 months and then they're unemployed for 2. Or I won't say unemployed because you do have a contract, but if you get what I'm saying, there's 2 months that you're just not getting paid. While I was prepared for the summer and my husband was still working, I was used to having more than enough. So at this time, me with maybe $2,000 or $3,000, I'm like, okay, I don't like this. So this leads me to my first experience with a credit card, because at this point we're moving out, we got to get furniture, nothing big, not too much, but couch. Yeah, we could have waited on the couch, but at the time I didn't want to. Washer, dryer, we could have rented one, but honestly, they didn't cost too much, but apparently it was too much if we weren't able to pay for it with cash, right? This leads me to my first experience with a credit card as an adult, away from my parents, on my own, or with my husband, that is. But as an adult, official adult, my parents had no attachment to these credit cards. So we opened a furniture credit card with Ashley's Furniture. We opened a Sears credit card for a washer and a dryer. Now, I do want to say, if you get a credit card, if you don't have any experience with the credit card, please make sure, if you are getting one, make sure that you actually need it. Especially if you already have a credit card. You don't need a bunch of credit cards, but to each his own. But if you get a credit card, please pay attention to the interest rates and the terms when opening a credit card, because if not, you can truly get scammed on these things. I had 2 existing credit cards at the time, which were only used to build credit before this time. Meaning, with the credit card, I would buy something small, and then I would pay it off immediately after the purchase with cash. So this was used just to establish my credit. When I got the furniture card and we got the Sears card and the other things that we got, this was because at the time, me thinking it would be better to have the credit cards and not use all of my cash up. Again, I was just used to having cash, and I said, well, maybe we could just get these credit cards to hold us over for the summer, and then we pay them off. Okay, all of the credit cards except for 1 or 2 had a limit of about $1,500, which I'm grateful for, because we weren't able to hike them up to, like, some cases, some people have cards that have a limit of like $10,000, and that's a lot to have to pay off if you do use all of that credit. The other 2 cards that we had were $5,000. Okay, so about 45 cards. Again, these are the cards that I had in my name. Needless to say, this experience made my chest tight, and I knew that we needed to do something about it, and fast. In the words of Dave Ramsey, we needed to make money behave. I sat down with my husband and expressed my concern. At the time of all of this, which was 2017, we continued to pay minimum payments since I had returned to work and there was no longer a true sense of urgency at the time. We just paid the minimum payments, and my nerves kind of settled down because I was back into work, back to getting paid. It wasn't until the next summer rolled around, 2018, and I found myself back in the same position as summer of 2017. And that's when we made our first debt payoff plan on paper. We wrote it down. That's very important. After months of listening to Dave Ramsey. So a few months before this, I was in the car with my parents and my siblings, and my parents and my brother, my middle brother, they were discussing Dave Ramsey. And I didn't know anything about this man. I had never heard about him. But they were talking about him, and it was just all these ideas, and I was like, he sounds interesting. And so that night, I went home and I started looking him up. I wanted to know more about him, and the rest was history. A few months later, we both picked up a part-time job for extra income. I worked at Kohl's, so I would leave after school, not every day, but some days during the weekday, I would leave after school, go to Kohl's and work about 4 or 5 hours, close, and then get up and do the same thing the next day if I had to do both jobs the next day. And honestly, Kohl's was a very good job. Working a part-time job, both of us working a part-time job, this increased our income, and it also decreased the debt payoff time. Now that you have my background, it's time to discuss the solution, the 5-step solution. For this video, we are focusing and discussing payoff for credit card debt. That's all we're discussing for this part of the video. I also want to say that this 5-step solution is what my husband and I did. It's not a breakdown of Dave Ramsey's plan. By no way am I affiliated with him. When appropriate, I will mention him so that you can go and research if you choose to, because I do think it's a great source. And I will say that Dave Ramsey recommends that if you're going to do his baby steps, then you strictly do his baby steps. You don't deviate, you don't revise the plan, you don't do any of that. So that's why I'm saying this is not his plan, because we took trips. We didn't always cook at home. Most of the time we did, but there were times where we did eat out. So it's a bunch of things that we did that was not in his plan. So I just want you to understand, this is not the Dave Ramsey baby step plan. Also, I am not a financial advisor. I'm just sharing my experience, and I hope that it helps you. Just remember to stick around to the end, because I will do a quick activity showing you real numbers, including the 5 steps. So let's get to how we paid off $9,041.66. Step number 1, talk to your spouse. Make sure that you both have an understanding, and that's if you have a spouse. If you're single, then you don't have to worry about that. But please make sure that you talk to your spouse and make sure that you all are on the same page. In some cases, there are situations where maybe you and your spouse aren't on the same page, but it will work better if you are married, if both of you can be on the same page. Step 2, list all bills and all debt. This is called a debt summary. If you are unsure about all the debt that you have, download an app, look up a program. Credit Karma is one, and it's pretty good with gathering all of that info. Or if you need to, if you say, hey, I'm not good at doing any of this, seek a financial advisor. We did it ourselves, and we listened to Dave Ramsey, and I feel like there's a lot of information out there, free resources out there, so that you can help yourself. Again, we're trying to get out of debt, not add to it. Step number 3, budget. Budgeting is important. If you don't have a budget, then I don't know how you're going to get this done. So, budget. Every dollar has a home. So what we did, we used a zero-based budget. So at the end of your budget, there should be $0 left to place, because every dollar has been given a home. So again, I will show an example at the end of the video. Make sure that you list every bill that you have to pay out that's going to a company. So this would be the first line of bills that you will list when you're looking at your budget. So things like your car insurance, your car bill, your rent, your mortgage, whichever you have, utilities, things like that, things that you are paying out to a company monthly. These items would be listed first. Then you will have your other bills that are not getting paid out to a company, but these are your bills or things that you need, necessities. These items we actually put into an envelope. These items would get listed along with the budget, but what we did, we listed it under monthly bills that were getting paid out to a company. So these bills that are necessity but not getting paid out to a company would be things like toiletries, gas, groceries, those things. So you need to think about, when you're listing these items, make sure you think about what you want. You need to know what you're paying. It's important to know what you're paying, know your bills. So when you list the items, you put the number that or the bill amount beside it. So again, with your envelope items or your bills that are just necessities, toiletries, gas, miscellaneous, groceries, etc., those things you also need to put a number by them. So when you say a budget, we set a budget so that we can stick to the budget. So have an idea of how much you spend on these things. And if you get to doing your budget and you see that I have absolutely no money left over, then maybe you need to rework things. Look at how you can add or subtract money in other areas. Another thing I want to say, for these envelope items, things that are necessity, these are needs, not wants. So if you think about $100 perfume that you just want really bad, that is not a need. So we wouldn't put that in that list unless you just have so much money left over, and that kind of shouldn't be the case. But if you do, and you're miscellaneous, if you have money left over and you're able to get a perfume, because expensive, that term is kind of subjective. So to one person expensive maybe $100 on a perfume, and I'm just throwing out some random example, but to others $20 could be expensive for a perfume. So again, it's subjective, but just to keep it simple, we're looking at needs, not wants. Once you get your budget, all of your bills and the cost, you add all of that up and then you subtract it from your income. That amount that you get, that total, if you get money left over, once you subtract that, that is the amount that you have that can go to your debt payoff, or what we would call your snowball, and we'll get into that as well. So, if you don't have any left, again, maybe you can look into your necessities, not your monthly bills that are paid out to the company, but look at your necessities and see if maybe you're spending too much on groceries. Maybe you're wanting to eat lobsters and steak. It might be good. It's fun to eat those things, but maybe we can tell it back a bit. And instead of spending $300 on groceries, maybe we can spend about $150. Again, everybody's family and structure is different, so do what you can do what's best for you, but you have to be honest with yourself and your spouse, or again, yourself if you're not married. Once you get your budget in place, then we're going to look at our situation. The budget helps you look at what is really going on with your money and what needs to happen. Step number 4, create a debt payoff plan. So we would do this creating a short-term goal or short-term goals and long-term goals. And it needs to be written down. Make sure you write this down. Be specific with dates and amounts. And again, be open and be honest. So we want to make sure that our goals are realistic and attainable. So think about how much you want to make and the bills that you have from the budget. We just did that, so we get to reflect on that. So for an example, if you make $4,000 a month and after paying all your bills, you only have $20 left, setting a goal to pay off a $10,000 credit card in 3 months, unless you run into some money, and we're not going to work our goals and plans on things that could possibly happen. We're working with facts. So paying off a $10,000 credit card in 3 months, that would not be a reasonable goal. Example of a short-term goal would be, I will pay off one credit card in 3 months. It's very simple. No need to draw it all out because that gets complicated. Keep it very simple, straight to the point, very specific. A long-term example would be, I will pay off all credit card debt by December 2024. Long-term goals are good to have so that you can have an end goal. So if you look at your long-term goal and you work backwards and you say, hey, I'm going to have, let's say I'm throwing a random number out, you have $10,000 of debt in total, credit card debt. And you say that you're going to pay it off by December 2024. Then what you can do is you can work backwards and divide that into however many months you have left and see how much you're going to have to pay every month to attain that goal. Looking at those numbers, doing that quick math, you can say, I don't see how this is going to happen. Let me rewrite my goal because this goal is not reasonable. That's how our long-term and short-term goals work with the debt payoff plan. Step number 5 is the debt payoff method. Finally, how are we going to pay off the debt? So there are 2 methods that I've heard about, and there may be more. Of course, you feel free to make it work for you. First option is the avalanche method, which is where you pay off the largest piece of debt first, and then you work your way down, and that is called the avalanche method. The second method that we chose to use is the debt snowball, and this is where you pay off debt the smallest to the largest. So when the smallest piece of debt is paid, and again, we're going to do an activity, you throw the amount that you have left over, you're going to add that on for the next debt line item that is the next smallest, and you just keep working your way through until all of the debt is paid. So let's say you have 4 line items or 4 credit cards. They all have $1,000 of debt. You max them out to $1,000. So because they're all the same amount, we're just gonna pick one. And so we have a card of $1,000. We pay it off. Let's say we got $100 extra each month to pay this card off. By the time you get done paying this card off, you're gonna add the 100 that you would have been paying to that card to the next one. So now you have $200 to add to that $1,000 because again, all the cards are the same amount. And as you can see, the debt snowball to me, it is more encouraging. It is fun to see knocking out debt. We really like this method. So because we were doing the Dave Ramsey 7 baby step plan at the time, that's what we were attempting to do. First, before we even began to pay off our debt or attempt to pay off our debt, we saved $1,000 emergency fund. Now, whether you're doing Dave Ramsey's plan or you're just doing your own thing or some other plan, I think it's important to have an emergency fund just in case. You just never know. It's good to have a little safety net. Two, or the second part of baby step number 1 was to make sure that you didn't have any overdue bills or pay off overdue bills. Now, because we didn't have any bills that were overdue, we already completed that part of the step as well. So again, make sure that you're at least, if you can, before you get to throwing extra money to debt and things, make sure that you're at least paying all of your credit card or your line items, your debt. Make sure you're paying the minimum payment. And I know that can get hard, but make sure that you're paying the minimum amount due. The whole point of this debt snowball method is so that you don't get confused and have your money going in multiple places and then it's like nothing is happening. It's like a hamster on the wheel. It's just ongoing. You're just paying just to be paying. The interest is adding up. That's the whole point of the debt payoff method, so that you can find one line item, attack it, get it done, and move to the next one. I hope that you were able to take away something from this video, even if it was just a motivation to get started. Remember, no debt-free journey will be the same, and that is okay. If you found this video helpful, feel free to screenshot the 5-step solution at the end of this video. Also, if you're interested in the working activity, the part 2 video, feel free to subscribe so you don't miss the next upload.